Where is my love, Kamalani? Please answer me, Kamalani. Pukani nui, Pukani nui. Oh, here I am, Kamalani. Here in this paradise, please come to me, Kamalani. When nights are still, Kamalani, you can hear the voice of Pukani nui. It beckons you, Kamalani. We'll be together again. Kamalani, Kamalani. Is this the fullness of heaven? Here in this paradise, please come to me, Kamalani. When nights are still, Kamalani, you can hear the voice of Pukani nui. It beckons you, Kamalani. We'll be together again. Kamalani, Kamalani. You'll hear the sound of his voice here in this paradise. Kamalani, Kamalani. You'll hear the sound of his voice here in this paradise.
Pukani nui,
Kamalani,
Pukani nui,
Kamalani.
Pukani nui.
Kamalani.
Well, aloha! I'm Bob Jasper, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the famous Coco Palms Resort. Got to be the most famous hotel in the South Pacific. Been shut down over 23 years now, and yet every day people want to come and see this hotel. And that's because of the people who made it so famous and put it on the map. And today in this documentary, we're going to talk about them. We're going to tell you why this place is so famous. This whole area of Kauai that the hotel is built in, this is all called Wailua. Centuries ago, this was the capital of our island. This was also the home of our last monarchy. And our last king was King Kamali'i. And back then, we're the only island never conquered by King Kamehameha or Kamehameha II. They'd try. They'd get in their warships in Oahu, they'd head this way. First time they got caught in a storm, little wussies had to turn around and go back. Next two times, by the time they get here, they're so seasick they couldn't fight. Well, our king, being a good guy, wanted to stop the bloodshed. And in 1810, he ceded Kauai to King Kamehameha II. So now all the islands came under one ruler. He tried to maintain some autonomy from the other islands. Down the road, that would come back to bite him in the fanny. And then in 1820, King Kaua'i married Deborah Kapuli, and she became our last queen. This marriage lasted 1 year. 1821, Kamehameha II came over to Kauai on his yacht. It was called Cleopatra's Barge, and I think they could have left the barge part off. You know, Cleopatra sounds pretty sexy, but the barge just kind of ruins it. Invited our king and his older son, well, come out in the yacht, let's party, let's celebrate. I think our king should have asked him, celebrate what? But he didn't. And they got on board. Kamehameha II kidnapped them both, took them to Oahu, and they never returned. Now, when they got over there, Kamehameha II had 5 wives, 5 of them. Oh, we could just dream for that. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, one of them was his half-sister. Back then, maybe that's normal. Today, we call it a reality show. You know, Honey Boo Boo, something like that. But he made our king marry her. Down the road, made our king's son marry her. Oh, Queen Deborah is over here. She's all ticked off. She lost her husband. And then I guess she decided to get even because she remarried. She married our king's half-brother, Simeon. And at that time, they lived on the west side of our island, Waimea. Then the missionaries showed up to Kauai, converted both of them to Christianity. In 1838, Queen Deborah built Kauai's first Christian church right back here on the grounds of the Coco Palms. Was not long after that, her new husband, Simeon, passes away. She is not a happy lady. She lost her interest in Christianity, had the church moved off the grounds. It was moved up here into Kaua'i town, and it's still there. Now, it's been rebuilt since then, but it's a little white church with a green roof called the First Hawaiian Church. Has a small cemetery right next to it. When you come to visit Kauai, you can't miss it. It's right on the main highway. The Queen built her home back behind us here over on the riverbank. So all of this was Queen Deborah's backyard. Now, in our history books, kind of difficult to establish for sure, well, who built the lagoons and when? Some stories will say, you know, the Queen had it built. Others will say others did. What we like to do, you know, if we don't know something for sure, we'll just kind of make something up. So we're just going to say that Menehune built this. That's the little people that lived here. And in their society, only the men did the work, and they only did it at night. You never saw them do it. They just come the next day, and whatever they did was there. Now, the Queen's favorite fish was mullet. They'd catch small mullet in the ocean, put them in the first of the 3 separate ponds. As they grew, move them to the second pond, and then the third pond. That's where they'd fish for them. Now it's all one long lagoon, no more separate ponds. We've still got some mullet in here. Mostly what's in here now is tilapia, and a lot of it. And also in the mud, big black Samoan crab in here. You do not want to go walking through the mud, okay? Now, the first Coco Palm was called the Coco Palm Lodge. That was built in 1950 by Alfred and Eleanor Hills. Itsy bitsy place, only had 24 real small cramped rooms, itsy bitsy combination lobby and dining room. The whole thing was all just one building, and it was mostly salesmen who would come over here from Oahu and stay here. Well, sadly, it wasn't long after they opened it that Eleanor gone. So Alfred remarried a lady named Vida. Some people pronounce her name Veda. I pronounce her name Vida. So now it's Alfred and Vida. And then Alfred gone. That's why if you walk in here, we make you sign a liability waiver, okay? So by 1953, it's just Vida. And Vida figured out in a hurry, she didn't know a darn thing about running a hotel. So she put a little ad in the paper, Honolulu, said Kauai Hotel for sale. And a man over there named Lyle Guslander, general manager of the big Moana Hotel, he saw that ad. He knew someday these outer islands were going to be big for tourism. He wanted this. Secretly, so his bosses would not find out, he started negotiating with Vida. And initially, she leased the property to him. And then Lyle got some partners. She sold it to him for $150,000. So now the man owns his own hotel. His bosses found out. He and his bosses went their separate ways, but that was okay with Lyle because Lyle now owned his own hotel. Now there was a lady who had moved from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Honolulu, and her name was Grace Busher. Her brother already lived in Honolulu. Her brother and Lyle were friends, so Lyle got to know Grace really well. So when he bought this place, being super impressed with Grace, he asked Grace if she would move to Kauai and run his hotel. Absolutely. She packed one suitcase, came over here, moved into the worst looking of the 24 rooms she could find. It is Grace who put this on the map. This lady was brilliant, and apparently Lyle thought so too, because down the road, Lyle and his wife went their separate ways, and Lyle and Grace got married, and she became Grace Guslander. One of the first traditions that Grace started were the weddings in the lagoon. Back in their heyday, they would do over 500 weddings a year. I had a friend that worked here for a long time, told me about one particular Valentine's Day. They had booked 22 weddings in that day. He said, Bob, I don't know if you play golf. Nope, I don't. But if the hole in front of you is slower than you are, pretty soon everybody's backing up behind you. That's the way it was that day, only they had 22 bridezillas on their hands. All this came to an end on September 11th, 1992. That's the day Hurricane Aniki hit our island. That's the last day this hotel was open. Just everything came to a halt. But, there's another guy that went to work here for the Hills in 1951. Went to work as a busboy and a dishwasher. His name is Larry Rivera. Then Larry gets drafted, Korean War, off he goes. 54, he came back. Grace hired him back as a busboy and a dishwasher. This is until she heard him play the ukulele and sing, and voila, Larry became the hotel's entertainer. Well, Larry, at the time we were filming this, is 85 years old. This man is still the ever-ready bunny. He never slows down. So Larry and his beautiful wife, Gloria, when it shut down, they took over the weddings in the lagoon. So, like right behind me here is their wedding boat. It's named Kamalani. That's their first granddaughter. So they do still the weddings here, they do vow renewals here, and when they have one booked, Gloria will come down, she will decorate this boat to the max with all these beautiful tropical flowers that they grow up at their place. They'll bring down some of their grandkids, at least one of their daughters, to do the hula and the entertainment and everything. So Larry has just totally kept that tradition going. And if you come to Kauai, we urge you, like I said, he won't slow down. He does shows all over the island, like 4 or 5 days a week. So when you get here, check his schedule, check where he's performing. We really, really want you to go see Larry. But we know there's someone else who came here and put this on the map. Who would that be? It just so happens that this particular day I'm talking to you, it is that man's birthday. Elvis. Elvis came here, and he came here for the first time in 1961 to film the last third of Blue Hawaii on our property. Now, we had another guy that worked here for 40 years named Big John. Big John Kauo, #1 martial arts instructor in the island. Grace's right-hand man. You want to talk to Grace? You got to get to Big John first. Well, Elvis was into the martial arts. You know, I'd go ahead and tell you the story about Elvis and Big John, but I think I'm just going to shut up right now because I want Big John to tell you that story.
Post over here is where Elvis sat right up to this post here. He had 10 in his body. Now the cottage he stayed in was, he took also at 5 of our cottages. Stayed in a Queen's cottage. So, I mean, you know, people act like that. And then every night he would go to Larry's bar, have a couple drinks, and go return to his room. Well, in the meantime, from there, after the Larry show, he comes in, joins Larry a little while, and he says, "Hey, Big John," they're ready to go to bed. He goes to bed real early.
Yeah.
So I told him that particularly evening, I said, "Well, don't forget tomorrow morning we have a date." You know, because your sensei, Mr. Ed Parker, called him, wanted me to continue the training that you've been doing. So he comes into the front desk. I was in the back office. He goes, "Hey, what is this guy, Big John?" So Julene comes off the front, my front desk. She looked at the prison note. She says, "Big John, he's here." So they thought that he was going to come up and register there, but I changed the whole thing around and made it so that, you know, he'll be out of the crowd here. But just want to let you guys know that he would never stay later than maybe 10:30. You know. So I said, "Well, tomorrow we have a date at 9 o'clock. Say, I'll meet you at the house in the Palms." So I come down around 9 o'clock, I put on my gi, I see the party over here sitting down. So I went up a jog, so I took 2 laps around the ground, Coconut Grove. I came back, I had a cocktail party here. So I'm waiting, I see these guys giggling and laughing, and I look at the watch. 9:15, I said, "These guys, they don't know how to keep time." So I give him to 9:30, he's still sitting. Oh my God. "Well, good morning, Mr. Presley." Yeah, I thought, he says, "Do you realize you have an appointment?" He said, "Yeah, but they tell me Hawaiians are always late." He said, "Well, these Hawaiians never late." I said, "You know, I'm quite sure you like to keep up with your appointments." He said, "I want to see you over there in 5 minutes." So I went, and he went to his room, put on his gi, and he came. I thought, "Hey, flash your car. Yeah, you get all this fancy stuff on it." So that's how we started. And I started showing, to show him. The first thing he told me, he wants a spa. And I said to myself, "Oh, I don't know about this guy, but Ed Parker told me on the phone." He said, "He's a pretty cocky guy. You got to put him in his place." So I thought, "Oh, okay." So too bad we can't go to the house in the pond, but we have this reflection pool about 2 feet deep, and it's written in Hawaiian, the Hawaiian cell, in Kumilanui, in Hawaiian. Means you have to put the waiting all over the pool. So he comes up, he's on his rise, and he's jumping around. So these 2 fat guys that were the group, I didn't know it was his bodyguard. So I thought they was either going to throw him out. So I said, "Oh, excuse me, Presley, but you know who these 2 guys are they with you?" He said, "Oh yeah, they're my lifeguard." I said, "You better put them on a diet, man. They're a bunch of balloons." He told me like this, "You go tell them." So the one guy, cocky one, he comes up to me and says, "You know, my friend, I don't want to disappoint you, but at the Hawaiians call opu. You got a pretty big opu. You better get in shape when you people do, his bodyguard." I said nothing. So after they left, he told me, Elvis, he said, "Boy, that guy, he don't pull no punch." He told me straight in the head.
Thank you, Big John, for telling us that story. Sadly, we lost Big John a couple of years ago in December of 2013. He told us about Elvis in Blue Hawaii, but there's a lot of other stuff that was filmed here at Coco Palms. Those of us with gray hair will remember Esther Williams. Esther was an Olympic swimmer, and then the war, World War II, they canceled the Olympics. So she went into show business as an actress. And in 1950, she came to the Coco Palms with Howard Keel. And they filmed a movie here called Pagan Love Song. I remember a scene in there where all these tall trees we have around here, all these climbers are going up in the trees. They're not tied. They're bipping back and forth, singing this goofy song. I've always wondered, how many of these guys came crashing out of the trees? I do not know. Fantasy Island. 2 episodes of Fantasy Island were filmed here. One of them was called The Wedding. And in that one, Rourke got married in the lagoon, just like Elvis did. Only time in the history of the show that Rourke ever got married, and I guess they figured he's just way too cool and studly to need a wife because they killed her off in the episode. Poor Rourke, he never got married again. Boris Karloff, of course, we all, again with gray hair, remember Boris Karloff. He always played Frankenstein. He came here in 1957. Filmed one called Voodoo Island. This is if this plant bites you, you turn into kind of like a wide-eyed looking zombie sort of creature, sort of like the original Walking Dead. France Nyan. France was the beautiful co-star of South Pacific. She played Bloody Mary's daughter, Leia. That was back in 57. Well, she came back in 77. Came back to the Coco Palms, still a gorgeous woman, and filmed one here called Death Moon. This is about a guest at the hotel. Every time there was a full moon, he turned into a werewolf, and he starts eating the other guests. Now, this is the best movie to watch if you want to see how gorgeous Coco Palms was in 77. Virtually every scene was filmed somewhere on the property. You can go to YouTube, search Death Moon, and watch the whole thing there, okay? And then you'll all probably send me really nasty letters wondering where an hour and a half of your life went to, because it is probably the worst movie you'll ever see in your life. Roger Corman. Roger, #1 B-movie director on the planet. Man's 89 now. He's made over 700 movies. He filmed the original Little Shop of Horrors with Jack Nicholson. He discovered Vincent Price. He made all the old Pit and the Pendulum, House of Usher. He even gave Stallone his first part in a movie. Roger came here in 1958. Filmed one around the lagoon called She Gods of Shark Reef. Terrific film. He came back again, 6 or 7 years ago. He's filming a lot for Sci-Fi Channel now. Filmed one here called Dino Croc versus Super Gator.
Now when I unfreeze, everybody just saw that big gator chop out of there. I want everybody to scream and run the heck out of there. Okay? And 3, 2. Cut. Action.
Right out here by the lagoon is where Super Gator ate the sheriff. And I had to just clean up the whole darn mess. And then they came back about a year later. They came back and they were here when that huge earthquake hit Japan. Tsunamis rolling towards Hawaii, states going around kicking people off the beaches. They go on the river to get people off the river. Yeah, that's who they find over on the river making a movie with no permits to make a movie. This one was called Piranaconda. I watched this movie, okay? Yeah, I did. I had absolutely nothing to do with my life. Either die or watch the movie. I chose to watch the movie. My doctor's in it. We depend on our doctors. Be serious. Keep us above ground, right? My doctor is a machine gun toting kidnapper. He kidnaps Michael Madsen. I have a new doctor. Anybody here, I don't know, maybe you watch South Park, the cartoon on Comedy Central? Okay. Trey Parker, the creator of South Park, he has a home across from Coco Palms here. Well, they came here a couple years ago, and they filmed an episode of this cartoon called Going Native. And a couple of the characters in the cartoon, one is named Butters, another is named Kenny. Well, they figure that Butters is part Hawaiian, and he's getting a little kooky. So they need to send him to Kauai to meet some real Hawaiians and straighten his act out. So he and Kenny come to Kauai. The whole episode makes fun of visitors, says if you own timeshare here, you think you're a Hawaiian native, says you got to have the Mahalo Rewards card, and you have to have chi-chis and vodka. Well, they run out of chi-chis and vodka. It's a disaster. So they send Kenny out to find some. Where's he go? Of course, comes to Coco Palms. He's wandering around the grounds, runs into Elvis's ghost. Elvis leads him to a secret vault full of chi-chis and vodka. Kenny is the hero of the day. Well, some time ago, I tell all my tours this same story, okay? A little later on in the tour, this gentleman catches up to me. He says, I guess I better tell you, I'm Butters. Okay, he told me his name is Eric Stow. I went and looked him up later on. Eric's been with the show since day one, okay? He's played Butters, he has played Kenny, he directs episodes. He just said they sent some guy on my tour. He took all these pictures of the place and then emailed them back to the production company. That's how they were able to draw Coco Palms into the cartoon. I have been waiting for my check ever since. It has not come. I did get Eric as a Facebook friend. Now he just harasses me, a Seahawk fan, about his Broncos because he lives in Colorado. That's all I got out of the deal. Anybody here, if you watched the last, it was the fourth sequel of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's called On Stranger Tides. There's a scene in there where the Spanish guy is sitting at a table polishing silver goblets. Johnny Depp's hiding under the table. Whenever the guy looks away, Johnny's reaching up, stealing the goblets, and then Jeffrey Rush comes up, hits the guy in the head, and takes the last goblet. That also was filmed right here at this end of the lagoon. So that's kind of a short synopsis of the kind of movies, and there's more stuff coming, and there's a couple other older ones I haven't talked about, but I don't want you to fall asleep during this, okay? Okay, now, off to my right, your left, we've got a bunch of bungalows over here. Here's 9 of them. 4 of them are at the other end. They're called the Queen's Cottages. The 5 down here are called the King's Cottages. We're going to take you guys to look at 2 of them. In the first one we're going to look at, they filmed 2 scenes from Blue Hawaii in that bungalow. And then the one next to it is number 56. First time Elvis came, they put him in 56. He's a creature of habit, so when he came back again and again, he wanted 56. And what Elvis wanted, Elvis got. I don't blame him. Okay, so off we go. We're going to go marching across the grounds here. Okay, here we are. We are in bungalow 59, and we're going to do a refresher course about Blue Hawaii because they filmed some of it in this bungalow. If you have seen the movie, maybe fairly recently, you'll probably remember what I'm talking about. If you have not seen the movie, you better get to your computer right now, bring up Netflix, order Blue Hawaii, get it in your queue so it'll be in your post office tomorrow. Okay, the storyline of Blue Hawaii. Elvis is a tour guide on Oahu. Groups of people will come to the state. He'll tour them all over the state. In Blue Hawaii, it's some high school girls who have come from the mainland, along with their chaperone, Miss Prentice, the librarian from the school. First 2/3 of Blue Hawaii were all filmed over on Oahu. Then they get in a plane, fly to Kauai, and check into the Coco Palms. In one of the scenes in the movie, this is Elvis's bungalow. The girls are down here off in another bungalow. One of the girls is a short, cute little blonde. Her name is Ellie. In the movie, She is a snot, a spoiled, rotten little brat. You really just want to spank her. And eventually Elvis gets to and relieves some anxiety. Well, one night after Ellie's roommates go to sleep, she steals one of their robes. She uses the other one's perfume. She comes in here. She is putting the moves on the king. Whatever she can do to get him in the bedroom behind me here, she's trying. Elvis, he doesn't want a thing to do with her. He's got a girlfriend in the movie. Her name is Miley. She's his boss on Oahu. What he does not know, Miley has gotten on a plane, flown to Kauai, and checked into the hotel. So Ellie is just in here, yapping away, and Elvis is doing whatever he can to get rid of her, and the phone rings. Hello? I do a terrible Elvis imitation. I'm not even going to try. Hello? Hi. Oh my God, it's Miley. Get to talking. All of a sudden he realizes she is here at the Coco Palms. Puts his hand over Ellie's mouth, trying to shut her up, and Miley goes, "You sound like you're putting me off." No. See you in the bar in 5 minutes. Click, and Ellie goes, "Well, we got 5 minutes." He says, "I got 5 minutes. You're getting out of here." About that time, there's a knock on the door. Knock, 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 knock. Elvis goes, "What is this? Game night at the Coco Palms?" He hides Ellie in the bedroom, and it was just a curtain in the bedroom back then. It's her two roommates looking for her. "Where's Ellie? She stole my pen. Why don't you use my perfume?" No. Ellie comes running out, and the three of them are screaming and yelling at each other. There's another knock on the door. It's Miss Prentice, the chaperone. Well, we got a little bitty door right over here, okay? All three girls go running out this little bitty door, and they hide behind the bungalow. And Miss Prentice comes in. She has come to tell Elvis she is falling in love. She has found romance in Hawaii. The way she's saying it, Elvis thinks she's fallen for him, right? I'm not into the cougar thing, okay? She's a lot older than he is, always getting all embarrassed and saying all sorts of just really goofy stuff, trying to get rid of her. All of a sudden, here comes Miley, his girlfriend, walking down the walkway. First thing Miley sees are the girls hiding behind the bungalow. What's going on with him? Just as she gets up to these shutters and looks through the shutters into the bungalow, she sees Miss Prentice give Elvis a great big kiss in the cheek. The man is cheating on me. And she goes stomping back up the path. That's the end of that scene, okay? So get that scene out of your mind, because we're going to talk about another one. In another scene, they use this very same bungalow, but now it's Miley's bungalow, Elvis's girlfriend. And they just change the stuff on the walls and stuff to make it look different. Well, she is back here in the bedroom, packing her suitcase, madder than a hornet. She's going back to Oahu. Doesn't want a thing to do with Elvis, okay? He doesn't know this. He doesn't know what she's seen or what she's thinking. And he comes bouncing down the path. He walks into the bungalow. Hi! Wham! She hits him in the face with a pillow. "You get out of here. I saw you and Miss Prentice, and I know what you're doing." He goes, "Me and Miss Prentice, what are you talking about? She's in love with Jack." "Oh, sure. They argue some more. She finally just shoves him out the door. She slams the door. She slams the shutters. And then she thought she saw something by the lagoon. She opens the shutters back up and looks out. She sees Jack and Miss Prentice walking arm in arm. She feels terrible. She has falsely accused Elvis of cheating on her. So, spoiler alert, we know by the end of the movie they make up and there's a great big wedding in the lagoon. I have some trivia for you. Trivia time. As Jack and Miss Prentice are walking along the lagoon, behind them in the water is a canoe. Two people slowly paddling the canoe. The person sitting in front paddling was a well-known singer back then named Patty Page. And Patty was here, and they said, "Do you want to be in the movie?" "Yeah, okay, get in the canoe." No lines, no nothing. We never saw Patty again. The little girl who played Ellie, sad story, 19-year-old actress named Jenny Maxwell. 20 years later, Jenny lives in Beverly Hills with her husband. He was an attorney. One night they went back to their condo development, walked into like the lobby area, walked into the middle of a holdup. Everyone in there, including them, was shot and killed. Very sad. And that has never been solved. You know, there was conjecture, her husband being an attorney. I don't know, was he a mob attorney? Was it a mob head? Nobody's ever determined that. But something kind of interesting started happening 8-9 months ago. I have a YouTube channel, it's Tour Guy 3, Tour Guy, and then the number 3. And there's a whole bunch of Coco Palms videos on there. Well, 8-9 months ago, a guy started putting comments on some of my videos. His name is Brian Rapp. In his first comment, he said Jenny Maxwell was his mother. I'm going, whoa. So I go to Wikipedia, I look up Jenny Maxwell, said in 59 she married a guy named Paul Rapp. 60, they had a son named Brian. 61, they divorced. She won custody of Brian. Brian said that she brought him here when she filmed Blue Hawaii. He said as an infant, the first time he ever walked was in a little bar we had here called the House of Bamboo. He said the first time I walked was in front of Elvis. He saw me walk. His last memory of Elvis Presley was when they were filming the scene at Anahola Beach where Elvis is spanking his mother. That's the last thing that Brian remembers about Elvis Presley. So that's what happened in this bungalow here. So our next stop on our tour of the Coco Palms is going to be bungalow 56, Elvis's bungalow. Off we go. Okay.
Yeah, I can remember from Elvis to Bing to Frank to Myron Farm, but Elvis was really special. How we met was in the dining room. We did a show, and Elvis was sitting in the middle of with 14 other of his entourage and people that looked like him. He had a lot of people that dressed like him, so the audience would get confused as who was the real Elvis. Anyway, that's another story. But there I am with my guitar, and the lights go out, and only one light shines on me. It's a bug light, because in those days we didn't have spotlights or sound systems. So my job was to sing the song Love and Aloha as I walked up to the stage. And as I walked up, he looked, his mouth dropped. I can't believe how, and I looked side-eye at him, and I kept walking from the dining room onto the stage. And that's what my job, to finish the song on stage. And so, but then when I finished the song, he would stand up and he'd say, yeah, yeah. He wouldn't just clap like this. He'd go, yeah, yeah. And all the 14 people would stand up and clap. You know, when the king stands, everybody stands. So he'd clap. He wouldn't let me get up for 3 songs in a row. And then the MC, Moki Hana Hano, came up and said, we have to continue with the show. So if you want to see Larry more, after this show, which is from 9 to 10, join Larry in the cocktail lounge. It's called a Nightcap with Larry, but the drinks are on you. And that's how that started. So he came over, and Patty Page was there too. And as I sang I Searched for Love, which I wrote a long time ago. And I wrote it for my wife Gloria. I search for love. I search for love. The truth is cut. I search for love all through the years. I search for love, but found just tears. And he said, I love that song. He said, Larry, he came in the back and he would sing, I search for love. He'd go, I search for love. You know your voice.
Yeah.
And Patty Page harmonized with him, and it was so nice. I mean, he sang so nice with Patty Page. Then after the show, he says, Larry, I'd like to buy that song from you. I'll give you $500 right now. I said, Elvis, I don't know how to copyright a song or sell a song. It says, if my aunt or a man will come and see you tomorrow morning, artists and repertoire. And so Tom Diskin the next morning came with the papers, and I still have the documents of the song that Elvis liked. It'll be in my book, by the way. I Search for Love.
Did he sign it?
Okay, here we are in Bungalow 56. This is Elvis's bungalow. This is the bungalow they put him in the first time he came, and he just thought it was the cat's meow. So every time he came back, he got in this bungalow. There's actually a picture of him sitting in this bungalow right next to the shutters over here, and that picture was taken in 1968, and that was the only time he brought Priscilla and Lisa Marie to Hawaii, and that was their honeymoon. They got married in 67, but he was so busy touring they didn't have time to take a honeymoon, so they took it in 68, and Lisa Marie was about 2 months old then. Then right behind the bungalow, big lava rock shower, and the shower head was at the top. And then down below it had a waterfall, and then there was a very small pool that you would sit in, and the waterfall would fall on you, or you could turn on the shower. And I'm never, excuse me. Yeah, I'm human. Okay, so I've never asked anybody if did they have hot water, no showers, or did you just sit out there and freeze? I don't know, but if it was me sitting in it, I'd freeze because my blood's all thin now from living in Hawaii. But you maybe, if you've come from a cold country, would find that boiling hot. And then behind, to my right here, this is the bedroom, okay? And then just beyond the bedroom is the bathroom. Bathroom was beautiful. Number one, it had 2 little fridges in it, and it also had this great big giant clamshell sink. Here, we'll show you. And then around all that sink and on the backsplash and on the counter were all these little bitty gold tiles, okay? This is one of them. These are all glazed in 24 karat gold. Interesting story about these tiles, okay? These were made by a company in California, and they were in business from 1950 to 1970. Then they went out of business. Well, Randolph Hearst was still building his Hearst Castle. He wanted these gold tiles in his castle. So he paid to put that company back in business so they could make these little tiles, only he had them make them much bigger, but for the Hearst Castle. So if you go through the Hearst Castle, same company made these tiles, all glazed in 24 karat gold. Pretty cool, huh? So we catch the spirit of Elvis in here, but I think we're gonna move into the bedroom here because I want to show you the closet. There's an interesting story about the closet. Okay. Okay, here we are in the bedroom. If the walls could talk. Well, anyway, off to my left here is the bathroom that I talked about. But off to my right is a closet. Just kind of looks like a boring old closet, right? You hang your clothes in there, and when you need to change clothes, you go take one off the hanger. But you look closely at that closet. There is a door that goes to the next bungalow. There is a reason for that door. There was an executive in Elvis's organization, and he always came here when Elvis did, okay? And he was a married man. However, he had a little something going on the side. And that little something always showed up in Hawaii when he did. Well, Grace knew this. So didn't really know this woman's name, just told all employees, call this woman Ms. Brown. Make sure you put Ms. Brown in the bungalow next to Mr. Smith. Okay, we'll call him Smith. And because they never knew which bungalow Mr. Smith would end up in, they put these little doors in all of them. right? That way they didn't have to go outside. They'd just go through the little doors. I know they weren't the only ones that used them. Come on, let's use some common sense here, okay? Jim Morrison and the Doors stayed at Coco Palms twice, stayed in the bungalows. I'll bet you they used the little doors. And then, no, I'm not really saying anything here. I did have a really famous musician go on the tour, you know, kind of Stairway to Heaven kind of famous musician. Well, he went on my tour, and he told me he stayed here in 1983. If he had not been with his wife that day, I would have asked him if he used the little door, okay? But seeing how she was there, I assumed what answer I would get, which very well could have been the correct answer. I don't know. Aren't I being evasive here? Because I don't want to get sued, that's right. So anyway, the little doors had a reason. So this is 56, and hopefully we're going to get this thing restored. Get it back to the way it looked when Elvis stayed in it, make it a nice Elvis museum. I'm just going to bring up the bungalow next door. It's number 55. We're not going to go over there. But if you watch Death Moon, okay, that wonderful, wonderful movie, you'll see a scene where Robert Foxworth, who plays the werewolf, comes out of his bungalow, and right behind him is his bungalow number 55. So next door, a werewolf lives in there. That's why we do not go in there. I am watching out for everybody. So, okay, we feel the spirit of Elvis in here. We thank him for letting us interrupt his rest. And now we're going to go on because there's so much more to see. So follow me. Here we go. So this is what the bathroom looks like now. Not quite as pretty as what I just showed you, but hopefully we can restore this and get it back to being as beautiful and gorgeous as it was when Elvis stayed in it. Hang in there, bathroom.
Okay. All right.
Okay, here we are back in the coconut grove. This is the biggest and the oldest coconut grove in the state of Hawaii. This was originally planted by a man from Germany named William Lindemann. And what he wanted was a copra plantation. Copra is dried, shaved coconut. Well, this grove is mostly all sandstone, okay? About all that's going to grow back here are palm trees and weeds. And Mr. Lindemann knew that. He imported 2,000 coconuts from Samoa. For each of those 2,000 coconuts, the man dug a 6-foot hole, put the coconut at the bottom, then covered it in a mix of soil and manure, trying to get his trees to grow quicker. Well, maybe they did, but I think he soon figured out probably won't be big enough for his lifetime or fast enough. So down at the other end, he tried planting olive trees. Well, that didn't work out. Found out olive trees will not grow in the state of Hawaii. He finally just gave it up. It wasn't really very successful for him. The grove itself is owned by the state of Hawaii. It is on a long-term lease to the owners of the Coco Palms. So the owners of the Coco Palms own from the back of these bungalows here all the way to the highway. It's almost a quarter mile up to the north end of their property. Across the highway, they have some oceanfront over there. There's an old restaurant sitting over there called the Seashell. And then beyond the grove, they own another 18 acres back there. That's where the tennis courts were. The only clay courts in the state. Grass is totally grown through the clay now. There's still some big lights back there. The little pro shop's still sitting back there. It looks pretty good. And then in front of the courts, we had a zoo. The most popular animals in the zoo were the gibbons and the howler monkeys. Now, way back then, our gibbons, our captive gibbons, were the only captive gibbons in the world to reproduce in captivity. And they did that 3 times. Horny little buggers. Our howler monkeys, they just keep everybody awake, okay? They're noisy critters. There was a couple of donkeys that were very, very mean. They would do everything they could to bite you. There was a billy goat who would try and put you over the fence if he could. It was not a very friendly petting zoo. Don't pet the animals, they'll kill you. Then we had a bunch of birds back there. We had peacocks who roamed around here, and they also keep everybody awake. And there was a deer for a while. And then Grace's favorite animal, her water buffalo. The water buffalo was a gift to Grace from Lyle. Oh, she loved it. She'd say he's got the most beautiful brown eyes. I had heard a story that the water buffalo was killed by a falling coconut. Now, I didn't know if I believed this story. I mean, come on, their skulls have to be this thick, right? But one night I was on our Facebook page, and there was a man on there named David Hawes. As it turned out, David had been the zookeeper here. Fell in love with animals, went off to Colorado State University, became a veterinarian, came back, and he was the hotel's vet, just like David's dad was before him. So I told him the story. Is this true? He said there was a windstorm one night. Next day they got a call, police come down, went back to the buffalo's enclosure, found him surrounded by coconuts, not just one, and he was deceased. Everybody was afraid to go tell Grace. So they scooched the buffalo up to a tree, wired him to the tree to make him look like he's just resting until somebody finally had the nerve to go tell Grace. And I guess Grace took it okay. Okay, I'm going to go through the whole chain of ownership right up to what's going on at this hotel today. First, it was the Hills who built the little bitty Coco Palm Lodge, okay? And sold it to Lyle. Lyle sent Grace to run it. They are the people who eventually started building on, and they had a company called Island Holidays. Really became successful. Soon they owned 10 hotels in Hawaii, 3 at the Los Angeles airport, 1 at the San Francisco airport, 1 at the Dallas airport. It was in 1969 that Lyle and Grace got married. And it was also that year they sold Island Holidays to a large Hawaiian company called AmFac. That stands for American Factors. Lyle became vice president of AmFac. Lyle also owned a majority of the stock. Grace kept managing the Coco Palms. Sadly, in 1984, Lyle passed away. He was only 63 years old. In 1985, the Coco Palms was sold to a company in Hong Kong called Park Lane Hotels. Grace retired that year, lived the rest of her life across the street. Well, under Park Lane stewardship, it started to deteriorate. And they just didn't take care of it. I just got visited by somebody maybe very close to me. Come back, come back. Okay, we get visited by all sorts of creatures back here, and this one has wings. It's not a bat, it's a dove. Anyway, so Park Lane owned the hotel when the hurricane hit in 1992. It just sat here for 13 years while Park Lane and Aetna Insurance tried to settle their differences in the damage claim. Finally they did, and Park Lane just got paid and off they went. The current owners bought it in 2005. It was a partnership with the majority owner being Prudential Investments, a part of Prudential Insurance Company. And they had 2 minority partners who were developers from back east. They spent a lot of money getting ready to do what they were going to do, millions, in the design work, the building permitting process. They were going to come in, they were going to knock the whole thing down, build it back in the same footprint, right where it was. It was going to be 200 condos and 103 hotel suites, still operated as the Coco Palms Resort. So in 2007, they opened a sales center up here at the Coconut Marketplace. Start selling the condos. A 1-bedroom's $1 million. 3-bedroom, $2 million. People loved the idea And they had a big model of what it was going to look like, and people were buying them. I've actually had people go on my tour who bought. And then in '07, that whole economy started to turn. Housing values start going down. We got into 2008, it got worse and worse and worse. By September of 2008, when the stock market just bottomed out, Prudential says, stop, we're not going to go ahead with this right now. The economic conditions are not right to do it. They gave all the money back to everyone who had purchased. They went and they did get the county to extend their building permits for 3 years, hoping the economy would recover. Okay, now it's getting toward the end of the 3 years. The economy has not recovered enough. So at that point, the other two partners were gone, Prudential, sole owner. They asked the county for 1 more year extension on their building permits because now they decided to sell the property. County said no. So Prudential contested it. So it went to a hearing. The only people at the hearing were the hearing officer, Prudential's lawyer, and me. And all we could get the hearing officer to do was extend the permits for 30 days. So 2 years ago, April, all the building permits here were revoked. But right about that time, 2 guys showed up from Oahu, went on my tour. They absolutely fell in love with the place, said, we want to build it. So there was one law still on the books which would allow them to rebuild it. It's called the Iniki Ordinance. It says any buildings on Kauai damaged by the hurricane can be rebuilt back to what they were back then, under the building codes back then, and the fee structure. Save a developer a lot of money. That's what everybody was counting on. Then there was rumblings on the island about let's revoke the Iniki Ordinance. And so we all had to get our guns together here, and we got thousands of signatures of support from the public for the rebuild of the Coco Palms. And our county council had to make the final decision on the Iniki Ordinance. And thank goodness, they agreed to extend the Iniki Ordinance for 2 years. So as we're speaking today, and as I mentioned, this is Elvis's birthday, January 8th, 2016. The property is in escrow between Prudential and the new buyers called Coco Palms Hui LLC, Chad Waters and Tyler Green. Escrow should close any day. And they're prepping to get ready to come in here and go to work. They have signed a 30-year contract with Hyatt. Hyatt won't own the resort, they will manage it. It will be the only hotel in Hyatt's chain that their name doesn't come first. It will be called Coco Palms by Hyatt. They're not going to rebuild the tennis courts in the back. They're going to build a 10-acre solar plant back there. This entire hotel will be operated on solar energy. The bungalows do have to come down because they do not meet FEMA flood code. So the bungalows have to be rebuilt on 8-foot stilts. They are going to rebuild the Seashell restaurant across the street, and a well-known chef here who owns 2 other restaurants here named Jean-Marie Joslin, who worked for the Seashell decades ago. He will operate the Seashell. Our room buildings, now only 30% of this has to come down. The room buildings are all steel and cement. A lot of the structure is all steel and cement. It doesn't have to be knocked over. They just refurbish it. Up on some of our flat roofs up here, we're going to plant our vegetable gardens. We're going to grow our own vegetables for our own restaurant. Estimated build time is 2 years. So we're probably looking about mid-2017 to get this back open. Start saving your money. Save your money. Don't spend your change. Do not spend change. Put it in great big jars. In 2 years from now, you'll have enough money to come stay at the Coco Palms and take my tour too, okay? So that's where we're at right now. But there's still some more stuff to show you. Let's go. Come on. There we go. Let's go. So earlier we talked about Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, part of it being filmed on our property here. Well, now we're filming back in the Grove. My only job from the director, tough one, it was a tough one, was to find him 2 trees that were about 6 feet apart at the base. I found him these 2 trees back here. So when you watch the movie, you say, oh, those are the trees that Bob found him. So there's a scene in the movie where Johnny Depp is tied to this tree right here on the right, and Geoffrey Rush is tied to the tree on the left. Now they cut all the weeds so you could see them. They're sitting on the ground. They have all this rope around them, but their hands are free. Well, in the movie, Geoffrey has a wooden leg. So in one of the scenes, he takes his leg off. He pulls the cork out of it. It's full of rum. He and Johnny are passing the leg back and forth, getting tanked. And then Johnny decides he wants to scooch up his tree. So farther up on that tree are some scrape marks. That's where they had some gear hooked to the tree to pull him up, to make him look like he's scooching. And then computers can just take that gear out. So on this tree is Johnny Depp DNA. And if you buy a Johnny DNA ticket, we'll negotiate the price. I'll let you scrape some of it off the tree, okay? So just keep that in mind when you're watching the movies. If I go take Bob's tour at Coco Palms, I can grow my own Johnny. When he grows up, he'll support me. He'll take care of me in my old age, okay? It all happened right here. Let's go. Got really important things to talk about now. Okay. You see this structure behind me? This has been in this grove over a half a century now. What it used to look like, laying back here in the weeds somewhere, is a great big beam, like 12 feet long, 12 by 12. That was on top of these posts here. Laying here was the roof. It's like an A-frame roof. Hanging from the beam was a brass bell about this big. What they used the bell for? Queen Deborah died August 26, 1853. Interesting thing about the Coco Palms, after Lyle bought it, they closed it for a couple months to do some cleanup and shine it up and everything, and to reopen the new Coco Palms Resort. They reopened it on August 26, 1953, 100 years to the day after Queen Deborah died. So every August 26, all those years that they were open, every August 26, they had a great big ceremony back here to celebrate the return of Queen Deborah. And the royal procession was here, and they all were dressed like they did back in the days of the monarchy. They had a woman dressed as the queen, and they had a chanter. So they're heading up the paths through the grove, and they're heading up to the lagoon. And as they're going, the chanter, he's chanting to the queen all the way. And then they get up to the lagoon, and King Kaua'i is coming up the lagoon on his boat. And he sees his long-lost queen and gets off his boat and greets his queen. Well, all that time while they're doing this, just like they did back in the days of the real monarchy, when the real monarchs were coming, somebody is ringing that great big brass bell. I used to be able to ring that brass bell. Then one morning, my wife and I got here, and we're driving around the grounds, checking them out on our golf cart, and we get back here. Now we find the roof on the ground. We're going, well, how'd that thing get on the ground, right? And we started looking around, and we're looking at that beam. And right in the middle of the beam where the bell was, somebody had been trying to chop the beam in half. Obviously, whatever tool they had with them at the time was not going to get through that great big beam. But we know they're going to come back with the right tool. They're going to finish the job. We got to finish it. All we had was a little bitty hacksaw about this big and a little bitty flashlight. We were back here till 11, almost midnight that night. Now the grove is all overgrown. This is all sacred ground back here. The Hawaiian word for remains or bones is iwi, There are burials all over here. There's EV all over here. The state will not allow you to build back here. This is for aesthetics only, okay? We swear we are seeing things, we are hearing things, we don't know what, but we are just sawing like crazy. Well, we finally got that bell off there, put it on our golf cart, we zoomed out of here. Our office up here, we had 3 locks in our office. Somebody, and we assume it's the same people, came back, see the bell's not here, ripped all the locks of our office, stole all our power washers, our weed whackers, our blowers, our generators, cut a big hole in the fence, cut the chain we'd locked up our golf cart with, stole our golf cart. We had the bell with us in the car. No, they did not get that bell. And that bell's off the property, very nicely hidden away in storage miles away. And when the hotel's rebuilt, this will all be rebuilt. All the ceremonies that went on before here at Coco Palms will all be recreated and done again. Everything that made this so successful, they're gonna do it again. So I can hardly wait to get this rebuilt, get the bell back out here and where it belongs. So when you come back, you know, if you're here like August 26th, you'll get to see the Queen ceremony. Okay, let's go. More to look at. We can't dilly-dally. I cannot just sit around all day dilly-dallying. Here we go.
On August 26, 1853, 137 years ago, Queen Deborah Kapuli died. Kapuli was the last queen on our island of Kaua'i. These were her royal grounds. August 26, 1953, just 100 years later, the Queen returned to the Coco Palms. So each year, in commemoration, the Queen returns. Tonight's pageantry of a visitation and a blessing with ancient chants to the assemblage, to the Queen, to the King. A visiting kahuna, Hawaiian high priest, approaches, chanting a welcome to the assemblage. Sounds the return of the Queen. The torchbearers are lighting the way. The conch shell heralds the approach of the royal court. The priest of the court kahuna, leads the way, blessing the ground upon which they will walk. The taboo stick bearer chases away the evil spirit.
Okay, back in the day when this hotel was open, this coconut grove looked like a golf course, like your front lawn. They had like 30 people on staff just to maintain the grounds here, and it was just beautiful. And behind me here, you'll see like that little tin roof round structure back there. Those used to be all over the grove, and they all had thatching on the roofs, and people could take a nice stroll through the grove. And then they have benches at the bottom. If you wanted to sit under one of those in the shade and just relax, you could. And then the hurricane came along and just blew them all over. Well, my wife, being the builder she was, put this one back together so people could see what it looked like before. So I understand that the state is going to let them rebuild all those back out here. And so when you get here in 2 years, when we reopen, the grove is going to look gorgeous again, and you'll have these nice structures out there that you can sit in the grove and just relax and enjoy the afternoon. That's all I got to tell you about that round thing. Okay, well, I showed you a couple of the king's cottages. Behind me here is one of the Queen's cottages. There are 4 of the Queen's cottages. They're a little bit smaller. They don't have the lava rock showers, and they were $10 a day cheaper. Well, I had a lady on the tour one time that told me she got married here in 1971. She said she and her new hubby were staying in the bungalow unit on this side. Well, she said next door to him in this unit was Bob Denver Gilligan and his wife. Well, she said they didn't get along too well because they continually had arguments about things. She said we couldn't sleep because they're discussing things a little too loudly. Well, back after the hurricane, my wife and I started a company here called Hawaii Movie Tours. And I was researching everything filmed on Kauai. Oh, I found out that the first episode of Gilligan's Island was filmed on Kauai up at Moloa'a Bay. So through the internet, I was able to track down Bob Denver's last wife. Beautiful lady, her name is Dreama. Dreama set up a phone call between Bob and me so we could just learn things about his filming experiences here to tell people on the tour. Well, when she found out I was calling from Kauai, she just, I don't know how to describe it, but she was so happy I called because Kauai was Bob and Dreama's favorite place on the planet. They would spend every winter here. And then because of some personal issues in their family life, they had to stop coming to Kauai. So we kind of became their personal shoppers and got to be real close to them. And after Bob passed away 10 years ago, got even closer to Dreama. So when this lady told me this story, I got a hold of Dreama. I said, Dreama? Who was Bob married to in 71? And I told her the story. And she goes, oh, geez. Says, only wife I never met, but little girl from South America had a terrible temper, and they would just fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. But Dreama's come out with a beautiful book, and I hope you'll go to Amazon and pick it up. It talks about her life and with Bob and with their son, and it's called Gilligan's Dreams, the other side of the island, okay? So get it. It's a beautiful book, a tearjerker and a beautiful, beautiful book. Okay, back here in 1953, there were no buildings back here. And then Columbia Pictures showed up with the gorgeous Rita Hayward to make a movie called Miss Sadie Thompson. And they built back here like a little barracks and a bar and fake storefronts. And then they built this chapel right here, used it in the movie. And then when they were done filming, Gray said, well, can you just leave the chapel? Well, heck yeah, save Columbia money. So from that point on, this chapel was used for all those weddings that were done here. Every Sunday, Grace would have a church service in there for the guests. And then even after the hurricane, for a year or two after the hurricane, Larry Rivera still used it for his weddings. It's not being used anymore, but it will be resurrected and all fixed up nice and pretty again, and then they will keep using it for the weddings. So, vow renewals too, and Larry says he also does divorce ceremonies. So, keep any of those 3 things in mind. So here we are at the chapel. You know, it's just really kind of a relaxed, laid-back feeling to be here. I could probably just snooze away. You know, I've seen pictures of the chapel throughout the years, and about the only thing that changes in the chapel are chairs. Depending on what year that you're looking at, there'll be different chairs in there. But I have a couple of chapel stories I'd like to tell you. One time I had some people on the tour, and the day they were on the tour, it was their 35th wedding anniversary. 35 years ago, that day, they had gotten married in the chapel. Now, they were all alone, all by themselves here. they had to borrow a stranger hotel guest to be the witness, right? What I did not know is the day they were on my tour, on their 35th anniversary, they had a whole vow renewal ceremony all set up. Now their grown kids were with them. The guy who was the brother, well, he wasn't the brother, he was the preacher. They had their music on their iPhone, and they go up there and they just start doing this vow renewal ceremony. Well, pretty soon they're up there just crying their eyes out. Oh my gosh. All us back here, we're watching this thing, we can't hold it together anymore. Now we're all crying our eyes out back here. And we're just hoping, oh please don't let this go on, you know, don't let it be a whole 1 hour thing. We can't take it, we'll die of dehydration. So from now on, I'm asking anybody, it's your anniversary, you're not gonna do a vow renewal on me, are you? I have another story. Oh boy. When I got to the hotel in the morning, there was a car parked in the parking lot. And I'm unlocking the front gate, and a man comes up to me. He says, hi. He says, we're from Canada. I said, oh, hi, nice to meet you. He says, you know, we're on our way to the airport. I wish we were going to be here longer today, but we aren't going to be here long enough for your tour. But Mom and Dad stayed here a long time ago, and we sure would like to show it to them one more time. And I said, well, no, I don't mind. I'll take you to the end of the lagoon. You can get some pictures. Oh, thank you very much. Well, let me go get Mom and Dad. Well, they come walking back. Mom and Dad are in a bag. Oh boy, I see what's going on. I know exactly what's coming. You know, if you don't mind, we'd like to leave Mom and Dad here. And I said, well, no, I don't particularly mind, but there's one little spot. I'd like you to do it, okay? So I took them there, and I'll leave you alone. I went back and waited for them at the gate. So a little while later, they come out, and they thank me very much, and they get in their car, and they leave. Well, later on that afternoon, we're doing the tour. We get back here to the chapel. And a guy goes into the chapel and he goes up to the pulpit. And all of a sudden he goes, what's this? I'm going, what's what? Well, I don't know. There's a pile of something here on the pulpit. I go up there. There's Mom and Dad in a great big pile on the pulpit, no longer in their bag. I start looking around the chapel. Mom and Dad are everywhere. Oh my. And this guy is about to faint on me. He is about to faint. And all I could do was get some paper and scooch it under Mom and Dad and respectfully bring them outside and scatter them around the rest of the chapel here. But I'm expecting any time if I come down here at night, Mom and Dad are just going to appear, say, thank you, you know, and go away again. I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you those chapel stories. Well, this is going to be all refurbished and everything, so keep it in mind. Keep it in mind when you're going to want to do your own wedding here or a vow renewal. We get lots of people that come and do vow renewals with Larry. Just keep that in mind. This beautiful Rita Hayworth Chapel. Okay, right here on the corner, this was the museum. We had a beautiful museum there. Had all these wonderful items in it, and it's pretty well fallen apart now. The floor is collapsing, but everything that was in that museum, the Historical Society has safely all tucked away in storage. And when it is rebuilt, then all that stuff will come back here to the Coco Palms. Just beyond the museum, that is the honeymoon suite. I have the funniest story about the honeymoon suite. Maybe a year and a half ago, I had some people on the tour, okay? The day they went on their tour, it was their 49th wedding anniversary. So we get the tour back here, and I'm telling people that's the honeymoon suite. The lady goes, 49 years ago today, my husband and I were staying right there. The honeymoon suite is the only room in this 400-room hotel that has a bidet. She goes on to tell us her bidet story. She says, I'm sitting in the living room. My husband is using the bathroom. Pretty soon goes, honey! Yes, dear? Can you come in here a sec? Oh, why? Well, I don't know. There's just something really weird in here. I don't know how to work it. Okay. Well, she goes in. She spots right away what the issue is. The man has not used the toilet. The man has used the bidet. He's standing over the bidet. This one's got a handle. This one doesn't. And she's thinking, I am just keeping my mouth shut. Oh, you're right. Well, isn't that weird? Oh, wait. What's that little knobby thing on the back? What? This thing? Yeah. I don't know. What do you want me to do? Well, she says turn it. See what it does. Okay. She said he was wearing the most beautiful Hawaiian shirt. Destroyed his shirt. He wouldn't talk to her for 2 days. About 6 months ago, I come back. I came here. Larry is up at the Center Bridge doing a vow renewal, right? And I'm kind of headed that way, and all of a sudden I hear somebody go, Bob! And I'm so far away I couldn't see who's saying Bob. It's the bidet lady! And they were doing their 50th anniversary vow renewal. So I got up and we're talking. She is so funny. And she says, we can hardly wait to go on your tour again this week because I really want to tell my bidet story. This gentleman is not saying one word. There is no smile on this man's face, nor did they show up on my tour. I am praying she is not up here in the cane field somewhere. Anyway, that's my bidet story. I hope the bidet ends up back in there again. Everyone should enjoy a honeymoon like that, don't you think? Okay, we're going to head up to the main part of the hotel. Our adventure continues. Okay, here we are. This is the Queen's Audience Hall. This was the main banquet area for the Coco Palms. This was originally built, opened in 1976. And the incredible functions that went on back in those days here were just beautiful. And there's a lot of photos about that out there. And it's going to be restored back to what it was in all its glory. We don't bring the tour here. Quite a jungle trek to get here. So we'll move inside here and we'll show you a little more of what made this so glorious, and so many paintings of all the royalty that was on the walls here. People just loved coming here. So the Queen's Audience Hall. Okay, we don't have much light in here, but what you'll see as we're walking through, hanging from the ceilings up here, these beautiful gourd and bamboo decorations hanging from the ceiling, and then the great big fan blades. And that's how this would be air conditioned, just as they did way back in the time of the royalty. And these bamboo fans would be swinging back and forth, just keeping the air moving. So that's how this was. They wanted this, the Queen's Hall, and they wanted it like it would have been back in the days of Queen Deborah Kapuli. Okay, and you know, an interesting fact about when Grace opened this in 1976 for its grand opening, she invited all the general managers from all the other hotels on Kauai and served a 9-course meal. But the entire meal was all traditional Hawaiian food. The first course of that meal was opi'i. I don't know if in your trips to Hawaii you have had opi'i. You have to have an acquired taste for it. I've lived here 30 years. I have not acquired a taste for opi'i. It is raw, comes right off the rocks on the beach fronts. So Grace definitely tested the mettle of all the other general managers on the island of Kauai. So that is how she opened her audience, her Queen's Audience Hall. This, the Coconut Palace, is where Grace would often bring her guests down for dinner, especially after her manager's party up at House in the Palms. She'd go around there, invite a few people down here for dinner. There'd be tons of entertainment. There's a lot of hubbub going on down here. And Grace, as was her habit, the people that she was most comfortable with, she would seat closest to her. And then you'd work your way down the table. But people always felt just really honored to be invited by Grace to come down here and have dinner with her at the Coconut Palace. It will not be restored as a restaurant by the new owners because we have a lot of restaurants on the property. It is actually going to become additional banquet space. But it will be restored in all its beauty. It will just be used for a different function. Okay, here we are in the Coconut Palace Lounge. This is adjacent to the Queen's Hall. But I wanted to show you something behind the bar here. That beautiful blue, huge, hand-etched glass piece of artwork. This thing is incredible, all done by hand etching. The artist was a man named Joseph Feher. Joseph was the overseer of the art at the Bishop Museum. He was also the artist that back in the 50s and 60s did all the original poster artwork for United Airlines. And he came over here prior to this opening in the 70s, made this beautiful piece for Grace. And a lot of people aren't even aware it existed. I talked to Mr. Feher's daughter. Mr. Feher has passed away. And she didn't know this existed. And she wants to come and see it when we get this reopened. So this is just a stunning piece of art back here. And will be put back in its original restored order and kept behind the bar here. You know, one of the most famous traditions that Grace started here at Coco Palms involved a lot of the trees in this area all around me here. Whenever a dignitary or a celebrity would come and stay here, she would ask them to plant a palm tree. And then at the base of the tree, they would put a brass plaque. That plaque would say who they were, when they planted it, and their names, okay? There's a plaque right here. This is an interesting bit of history of our federal government. From 1867 to 1976, we did not have what is now called the Department of Education. We had a cabinet position called the Commissioner of Education. So this man, Lawrence Dieterich, who planted this tree in 1959 when we became a state, was the Commissioner of Education. Other people who planted trees here, Gene Autry, Rory Calhoun, Bing Crosby, Liberace, Prince Faisal. He became the king of Saudi Arabia, the Shah of Iran, glad they weren't here at the same time, the Emperor and Empress of Japan, the real Von Trapp family. And to show you how aware Grace was, they came here to perform in 1955. Sound of Music did not come out till 1965, yet she was aware enough of who they were to have them plant a tree back here. One of the most recent plaques I found was Duka Hanamoku, most famous Hawaiian on the planet, gold medal surfer, and all the Duke's restaurants in Hawaii are named after him. So all this will be restored. Any plaques that we cannot find will be replaced because we do have records of all of them and where those trees were. So just another brilliant tradition started by Grace. It just seems they never cease. This woman was unbelievable. So, there you go. That's the plaques. So you heard Big John talk about his karate lesson with Elvis and how he put him in the pool. Right here, this is where that pool was. This was the original King's Pool here at the Coco Palms. And then in the 70s, when they added on all the big room buildings, they built 3 new pools over there. So they filled this one in, and they built this structure here. And this was called House in the Palms. And this is where Grace would always have her managers' parties. And this was invite only. Invite only. You'd find the invitation in your room. It was for like honeymooners, real repeat guests, travel agents, people like that. And Grace would greet at your door, and she'd buy the booze and the poo-poos. And some people she'd take to dinner down at the Coconut Palace. If you were a really, really, really frequent guest, Grace and Lyle would invite you to dinner at their home. You never know when you walked in that home who you may end up having dinner with. Anybody could be sitting in there. John Wayne, Sinatra, Presley, you know, Bing Crosby, all these people. All of Hollywood stayed here at Coco Palms. This was the place to be. So this is going to be rebuilt. It's all going to be pretty new when you get here in 2017. And now I'm going to walk out before the roof collapses on my head. Thank you. Okay, here we are. This is the center bridge. This is like this is where all the action was going on here at Coco Palms. And Blue Hawaii, Elvis and Miley get together over there, and he starts singing the Hawaiian wedding song on that little bridge over there. And then they walk up the walkway here, and then they go out onto the grass. And right in the lagoon here is where that great big wedding boat was, right there. There's 4 paddlers in that wedding boat. For that scene, so many people got on the boat, the 4 guys had trouble trying to keep the boat going straight up the lagoon. They finally had to hook a cable to keep it going straight all the way up there. And there's a dock at the far end of the lagoon, and that's where the movie ends, right there. He sings the last notes of the Hawaiian wedding song. In Fantasy Island, when Rourke got married in the lagoon, in the episode called The Wedding, they got on a smaller canoe over there, and Larry Rivera is singing this beautiful song, this really beautiful song called The Love Song of Kailua. And then Rourke and his bride, played by Samantha Eggar, they also go up to the same dock where Blue Hawaii ended, which was kind of interesting. I'd say the most memorable, famous tradition that Grace ever started was the torch lighting ceremony. All along the lagoon and out into the grove were all these pots. Originally, Grace used Hills Brothers coffee cans. Then she had some real pots made. And she wrote this beautiful myth, this beautiful legend called the Call to the Feast. Or as Elvis said in Blue Hawaii, oh, it means the chow's on, right? So she is going through her call to the feast and talks about the conch shell. And the man comes out on the bridge and he blows the conch shell. And just talking about other things as they unfold, like a torch looks like it's coming up the lagoon. And then the last thing she talks about, the sound of the drums. And for a long time there was 2 drums. There was one right over here in the grove, and there was one hanging from the Oracle Tower down here. And you would hear the drums now, and Grace is done, and all you'd hear is these drums. And they're going boom, boom, boom. Oh, these places are full. Everybody's getting chicken skin. And out come the torch runners. And they're running across the bridge, and each guy is running his route. And as he's running, they're twirling their torches. And they all had a time. So every time the torch got to the bottom, a pot was there. and it would light up, and then they'd go out in the grove and do the same thing. And then they'd come back, and everybody's hooting and hollering. And no, almost all your hotels do this, you know. And they can all just thank Grace Guslander for using her creative ability to come up with something that they can all do now. And you can believe when this hotel reopens, it's going to happen.
The nightly ceremony, recreating, recapturing more than 100 years ago, when these grounds were the royal grounds on this island of Kaua'i. Always with royalty, there was one who blew a conch shell, and he would face to the rising and to the setting sun, to the mountains and to the sea. In the history of the Hawaiian people, which was handed down from one generation to the next, in the mele, in the chant, in the oli, in the hula, until the time of written records, until the time of missionaries. And he was compared to a herald calling to attention to listen to the drums talk. You will hear an authentic ancient beat on the big drums, calling to all within the range of its sound to come in. The food is prepared. The table is laden. Hawaiians never measured their time by day, but by night. By Mahina, the moon. And so the gaiety, the festivities, the feasting, and the music was after the lighting of the torches. You will see one run through this largest and oldest coconut grove in all of the islands, lighting the torches just as they did so many years ago.
Right behind me here is the Lagoon Dining Room. Across the breezeway is what's called the Lagoon Terrace Lounge. At the far end of the lounge was a little bitty restaurant. It was called the Flame Room. But these places were always busy. And Larry and his family would do their show in the main.
Meet my wife, Gloria. All honeymooners, anniversary on stage at this time. Congratulations to these lovely couples. Now this is important. We're going to find out their names and where they're from.
And then Larry would go in the Terrace Lounge here on a smaller stage and do a show called Nightcap with Larry. The drinks are on you. So Larry, quite the guy. I'm going to reiterate, when you come here, if you get a chance to go see Larry's show, see it. But there was a day in Coco Palms history that was probably the worst day I can ever remember, really. And it was fairly recent. And it was on July 4th, 2014. And just watch this. That's the breezeway between the restaurant and the bar. Look at the whole thing. That shell is history.
That was one of the first things he said when he left the house.
That shell is history. It's burning right over the shell. It's right there where the flames are coming out that end. God, I hope somebody's not under that thing.
Oh, can you radio those guys? Do they know that thing could come down? They know it's there.
want everybody out of here.
In Hawaii, the normal way to cook a pig is in the imu, the underground oven. Unless your name is Grace. And right here is where Grace wanted all the meats cooked. So this is an open fire pit, had 2 motorized rotisseries, and this is where they'd cook the whole pig. We got some great pictures of the pig. Everything. I got my hands on an old cookbook, 1964, Better Homes and Gardens, called Famous Food from Famous Places. Last place in that book is the Coco Palms. Shows the chef standing here, cooking like pork ribs, shows people eating in the dining room, and they had recipes from some of the dishes they'd served in the 60s. And then I also got my hands on some old menus from the dining room in here, and 60s, mid-60s. The whole left side of the menu, all in Hawaiian language. Right side's in English. Lobster, $4. New York steak, $3. Oh boy. But the really cool thing about the menus, that they used to belong to a waiter that worked here. If nobody was looking, and if he was waiting on a celebrity, he would go over to the celebrity with the menu, hand them a pen, ask him to sign their menu. And he'd stick it up his shirt and he'd take it home. Well, he passed away some time ago, and these menus came into my possession. And the cool thing was the back of the menus. One of them is signed Shirley Temple Black. Another one's a little note to the waiter. It says, "Dear Ken, yours truly, Anne Francis." And the last one, Elvis Presley. Only thing that's been found that was signed by him while he was here. So Grace just really had a unique way of doing everything. And that is exactly why this place became so famous, you know. And thankfully we have Grace's roadmap to follow. As long as we follow Grace's roadmap and adapt a bit to changing times, Coco Palms is going to be like it was before, just the place to be, the real Hawaii. I want to show you one more thing. We're going to walk up the path here a little bit. We're going to show you one more thing, then we're going to wrap this up if you haven't gone to sleep yet, okay? So you look behind me here, those were all the retail shops back there. And if you stayed here, you probably spent some money in one of those shops because they were all set up to get your money, okay? And the other end of all the retail shops was like Lappert's ice cream. Oh, there was just all sorts of good stuff that was here. And, you know, right where I'm standing, This is where you checked in. This is where they gave you your room key. This is where you'd look up in awe at that beautiful ceiling of the lobby. Well, as you can see, the lobby is no longer here. And that terrible fire did that. But you're coming back in 2017. Okay? You're coming back. And that lobby will be here. Everything you see will be all sparkly new and just waiting for you. So, for now, that's Coco Palms. Then and now. Aloha.
The nightly ceremony, recreating, recapturing more than 100 years ago, when these grounds were the royal grounds on this island of Kaua'i.
Beautiful Coco Palms shining in the sun. Beautiful Coco Palms, where my heart belongs. Beautiful Coco Palms, it's so heavenly. Beautiful Coco Palms, where I want to be. Drums beating in the night, torches lighting the way. Ukulele strumming for you, where the palm trees sway. Memories still live on. Once again it's born. Aloha is the spirit of beautiful Coco Palms. Drums beating in the night, torches lighting the way. Ukulele strumming for you, where the palm trees sway. Memories still live on. Once again it's born. Aloha is the spirit of beautiful Coco Palms. Aloha